How did humanity truly begin, and why are we here at all? Why do so many different civilizations that never knew each other tell eerily similar stories about non-human beings? And did James Parsons and his two sons actually find a slate wall inside a Hammondsville coal mine believed to be 300 million years old? There are things about our past that even historians and scientists cannot explain, or maybe simply don't want us to know. Stay tuned, because these discoveries may reveal a side of human history we were never supposed to question or even know existed. Number 15. The Berlin Magical Papyrus. The Berlin Magical Papyri reveal a side of Egyptian religion that feels almost impossible to square with temples and solemn prayers. These texts contain spells where priests did not politely ask the gods for help. They threatened them. A practitioner might invoke Ra, Isis, or Osiris, then warn that secret names would be exposed, sacred animals cursed, or cosmic order disturbed unless the demand was obeyed. The spells covered love, illness, dreams, court cases, enemies, protection, healing, and communication with the dead. What makes them especially strange is how practical the instructions sound. Specific words, specific objects, specific moments, and then the ritual was expected to work. Egyptian priests treated this knowledge seriously enough to preserve and transmit it for generations. That does not prove the magic itself worked, of course. But it does tell us something disturbing about the people using these texts. They believed divine power could be negotiated with, pressured, and perhaps even forced. Number 14. The Fisher Canyon Shoe Soul Sew. Is this shoe sole actually 200 million years old? Well, according to science, at that time only early reptiles and other prehistoric creatures walked the earth. Humans would not appear for an incredibly long time. But in 1927, Albert E. Knapp claimed he picked up a strange piece of rock in Nevada's Fisher Canyon that looked disturbingly familiar. Its shape resembled the heel of a worn shoe, with one side appearing rubbed down from use. Then came the detail that turned an odd rock into a decades-long mystery. Close photographs were said to reveal two neat rows resembling stitches around its edge, finer than the thread used by many shoemakers of Knapp's own time. Reports further claimed the surrounding rock belonged to an ancient geological formation. Mainstream geology has never accepted the object as proof of prehistoric humans, and its interpretation remains highly disputed. Still, one uncomfortable question survives. If those markings really are stitches, who made them? Well, of course, we don't have any idea. Number 13. The mummified hand of Queen Jair. What happened to this hand is almost stranger than its discovery. In 1901, Flinders Petrie was excavating King Jair's ancient tomb at Abydos when his workers discovered a small cavity beside the burial chamber. Linen rested inside. Petrie carefully opened it and found a severed mummified forearm, probably belonging to a royal woman. Around its wrist were 4 magnificent bracelets of gold, turquoise, lapis lazuli, and amethyst, untouched for nearly 5,000 years. Whoever concealed that arm had seemingly done so to save it from tomb robbers. Somehow, it worked. Then the 20th century arrived. The remains were sent to Cairo, where curator Miles Brooks removed the priceless jewelry and discarded the arm itself. Petrie was furious, but nothing could bring it back. No grave thief destroyed it. No ancient fire consumed it. Something protected that woman's hand across 50 centuries, only for modern hands to make it disappear. Number 12. The mythical monsters of the Bible. Well, science can explain plenty of otherworldly animals mentioned in the Bible, but a few descriptions still sound like they belong in a nightmare rather than the natural world. Leviathan is portrayed as a terrifying sea beast, armored with scales and powerful enough to make the waters boil around it. Then comes Behemoth, an enormous land creature with tremendous strength, described in Job as almost impossible for humans to control. Isaiah gets stranger still, mentioning fiery flying serpents, while older English translations speak of basilisks, cockatrices, satyrs, and unicorns. Jewish tradition later adds the ziz, a gigantic bird said to spread its wings across the sky. Scholars connect several of these creatures with crocodiles, hippos, cobras, wild oxen, and other known animals. Well, it's fair, but that does not explain every disturbing detail. Were ancient writers simply turning dangerous wildlife into monsters? Or were these stories carrying memories of creatures they believed were genuinely roaming the world around them? Number 11. The chapel at Axum. One man in Axum carries an answer millions would give anything to hear, but his entire duty depends upon never giving it. Beside the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion stands the Chapel of the Tablet, sacred to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. Within it, the church says, rests the Ark of the Covenant, the biblical chest linked with Moses, and the tablets of the Ten Commandments. No archaeologist has been allowed to examine the claimed relic. Visitors can't enter. Responsibility belongs to a single guardian monk, whose life becomes inseparable from the sanctuary he serves. Ethiopian tradition traces the Ark's journey from Jerusalem through Menelik I, son of Solomon, and the Queen of Sheba, though historians cannot independently verify that account. And therein lies the mystery. Perhaps the chapel contains a later sacred tablet. Perhaps an ancient relic survives there. Or perhaps the truth is stranger still. One person may know. Everyone else remains outside, while the question has survived generation after generation. Number 10. The Ipuwer Papyrus. This papyrus reads less like religion and more like a civilization describing its own downfall. Preserved today as Papyrus Leiden I 344. The surviving copy dates to the New Kingdom, though the composition itself is older. Its speaker describes Egypt overwhelmed by disorder, the poor possessing wealth, servants rising above masters, violence spreading, authority breaking down, and social roles turning upside down. Lines about the river becoming blood and destruction across the land have led generations of readers to compare the text with the biblical Exodus. That connection remains heavily disputed, and most scholars treat Ipuwer as a literary lament rather than a direct confirmation of those events. Still, the document carries an emotional weight that is hard to shake. Whether it reflects memory, political fear, or poetic exaggeration, its writer understood what total breakdown felt like. We are not reading about monsters or curses here. We are reading about people watching order vanish and wondering whether their world was coming apart. Number 9. The Vatican Apostolic Archive. Perhaps the strangest thing about the Vatican Apostolic Archive is not what we know it contains, but how little of its enormous collection most people will ever see. Roughly 85 kilometers of shelving preserve the private paper trail of one of history's oldest institutions. Galileo's interrogation sits there. Henry VIII's desperate appeal for an annulment survived there. So did correspondence involving Michelangelo, monarchs, inquisitors, diplomats, wars, scandals, and decisions that quietly altered Europe. But walk beyond the material open to scholars, and the story becomes considerably murkier. Access comes with strict rules, while later records remain closed until the Vatican decides their time has come. And that leaves a question difficult to ignore. Across centuries of private letters, reports, confessions, investigations, and conversations never intended for ordinary readers, what never reached our history books? Well, we know very well what escaped those shelves. We cannot know everything that stayed behind. Number 8. The Turin Papyrus Scandal. When Jean-François Champollion examined Papyrus 5501 in Turin in 1824, even the man who had helped unlock Egyptian writing was shocked by what he saw. The scroll, dated to around 1150 BC, contains two very different worlds. One section shows animals behaving like people, while the rest presents 12 explicit scenes involving men and women in positions that 19th century scholars considered impossible to publish. For decades, the papyrus was discussed carefully, partly censored, and rarely shown openly. But the Egyptians who made it may not have viewed it with the same embarrassment at all. Experts have suggested satire, comedy, social mockery, or erotic fun, but its real purpose remains uncertain. What makes the scroll fascinating is not simply the imagery. It reveals a side of Egypt that older scholarship preferred to keep out of sight, playful, sarcastic, and completely human. Perhaps the real scandal was never what the Egyptians drew, but how long modern scholars tried to pretend they had not. Number 7. Myherperi's moving Ushabti figurines. When Victor Loret's workers opened KV36 in 1899, they found something the Valley of the Kings rarely gives back: a burial that had escaped ancient robbers untouched. It belonged to Myherperi, a young noble raised near Egypt's royal court about 1400 BC. His coffins, weapons, papyrus, gaming board, and personal belongings were still there, along with boxes containing wooden Ushabti servants. Egyptians placed these little figures beside the dead for a reason. When their owner was summoned to labor in the next world, they were expected to answer in his place. Yet an eerie story later became attached to Myherperi's collection. Early accounts claimed that figurines seemed to change position after their boxes had been opened and examined. Vibration, loose packing, or shifting wood could easily explain such movement, and no solid evidence proves otherwise. Still, knowing what these servants were supposed to do makes the tale difficult to shake. Perhaps Myherperi's little workers never received permission to stop. Number 6. An assassinated pharaoh's warning. Amenemhat I spent years building a kingdom, only to discover that power offered no protection from the people standing closest to him. Around 1962 BC, the founder of Egypt's 12th dynasty appears to have died violently, possibly during a palace conspiracy. Soon afterward came the instructions of Amenemhat, written as though the dead pharaoh himself were speaking to his son Senusret from beyond the grave. The message is painfully simple: trust no one. The speaker recalls being attacked while resting, abandoned by men he had rewarded, and betrayed by those expected to protect him. Whether the text preserves genuine memories or political propaganda remains debated, but its anger feels unusually personal for Egyptian wisdom literature. There is very little calm philosophy here. Instead, we hear suspicion, regret, and the bitterness of a ruler who learned too late that loyalty could disappear overnight. Even stranger, Egyptians kept copying this warning for centuries. Maybe because every future king understood the same frightening truth: the throne could make you powerful, but never truly safe. Number 5. The magic bricks at the four corners. Egyptian priests apparently did not trust a sealed door to protect their dead. Inside certain New Kingdom burials, 4 small mud bricks were placed around the chamber, each facing a different direction and carrying words from spell 151 of the Book of the Dead. Small ritual figures accompanied them: a jackal, a jed pillar, a flame, and a mummiform figure. Together, they formed something far stranger than decoration. Each brick spoke as though its guardian were already awake, ready to repel anyone threatening the deceased. Tutankhamun had such bricks surrounding his burial chamber when Howard Carter entered his tomb. Carter documented them, photographed them, and removed them. Then came the deaths that newspapers turned into the famous pharaoh's curse. Most have ordinary explanations, and Carter himself survived until 1939. But the uncomfortable part was already written centuries before those headlines. Egyptians had deliberately placed supernatural protection around the king. But why? Number 4. The curse of Kenta at Saqqara Kenta did not leave a gentle warning outside his tomb. He left a threat. Around 2350 BC, this powerful Old Kingdom official was buried near the Pyramid of Teti at Saqqara, where his titles identified him as vizier, overseer of royal works, treasuries, and granaries. Then, his workmen carved words that still feel strangely personal after more than 4,000 years. Anyone entering the tomb in an impure state would face judgment, and Kenta himself promised to seize his neck like a bird. The image was brutally clear to an Egyptian reader. Hunters commonly killed birds by gripping and twisting the neck. Tomb curses were uncommon during this period, which makes Kenta's choice even harder to forget. Scholars believe the warning may have targeted priests responsible for maintaining his funerary offerings. But the wording goes further than protecting property. Kenta speaks in his own voice, promising fear and physical punishment. Read those lines today, and somehow the dead man still sounds close. Number 3. The basement of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. For over a century, ancient bodies and burial objects kept arriving at Cairo's Egyptian Museum faster than anyone could properly study them. Downstairs, crates accumulated beside coffins, stone fragments, papyri, and wrapped remains brought from excavations across Egypt. Then, one forgotten mummy showed what those storerooms might still be holding. It had rested there since 1916, unopened and unnoticed, until researchers finally examined it with CT scans. Inside was a teenage boy buried with 49 amulets, including a golden heart scarab, preserved beneath wrappings nobody had disturbed for roughly 100 years. He became known as the Golden Boy. But his discovery leaves a rather haunting thought behind. How many others are still waiting among those old storage rooms reduced to registration numbers instead of names? Number 2. The sacred Nile perch of Esna. Thousands of mummified fish were once buried near Esna, and ancient priests had already warned people against treating them carelessly. The Nile perch was sacred to Neith, one of Egypt's oldest creator goddesses, and temple traditions connected the animal with divine protection. Excavations beginning in the early 20th century uncovered fish wrapped in linen, tied with palm fiber, and sometimes placed inside small coffins. Several specimens were enormous, while others were no larger than a hand. Then came the detail that gave the old warnings a disturbing second life. Accounts later associated the handling of ancient animal mummies with eye irritation and illness, something modern conservation science can explain through dust, mold, and potentially harmful fungal spores released from decayed organic material. Ancient Egyptians knew nothing about microbiology. Yet generations had learned that certain sacred remains were better left undisturbed. Their explanation was divine punishment. Ours is biological contamination. Different reasoning, same warning. Now, let's move to number 1, the Book of the Heavenly Cow. The Book of the Heavenly Cow begins with something no worshiper would want to hear. Ra once decided humanity had gone too far. According to the myth, the aging sun god learned that people were mocking his weakness and plotting against him. He called the gods together, and their answer was brutal. Ra sent his eye in the form of Hathor, who became the lion-headed Sekhmet and began slaughtering humans. The killing grew so violent that Ra himself became alarmed. To stop her, he ordered thousands of jars of beer mixed with red ochre until the liquid resembled blood. Sekhmet drank it, became intoxicated, and her rage finally faded. Humanity survived, but Ra no longer wished to remain among people. He withdrew into the sky on the back of the goddess Nut, ending the direct rule of the gods. Versions of this story appeared in royal tombs, including Tutankhamun's shrine. Well, that's all from us. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon.